Joining Carl on this week's show is Markus Pineyro, founder of Oomi Kitchen, a digitally native restaurant in Texas. They talk about, is first-party ordering as valuable as it once was? Does DoorDash's new offerings change the game? And is the new technology being used at Starbucks the future of inventory control? That's all ahead on this week's Digital Restaurant.
We are back. The Digital Restaurant is here, and as ever, I have a brand new co-host, and it feels like it's good timing because we call ourselves the Digital Restaurant, but have we really ever had a digital restaurant operator on the show? Well, today we fixed that because my good friend Markus is with me. Markus, good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you, Carl?
I'm great, my friend. I really appreciate you sparing some time to have a chat with me. Always love spending time with you and hearing the great things that are going on over at Oomi. I want to make sure we get some time in at the end of today's show so you can tell us a bit about Oomi and the journey you guys have been on over there. But you and I have been talking over the last week about all the stuff that's been going on in the industry. And so I think we better get on with it because, as ever, there's lots of stuff happening out there. And the first question that was interesting, this article came up, which in many ways put into question everything that people always talk about. Everyone always says first party is the way to go. The more transactions you get on first party, the better. And yet this article came out that was questioning that a little bit. Tell us a bit about the article and your take on it.
Yeah, I think that this is obviously like an ongoing dilemma, right? And I think it just depends on who the operator is. I've been operating restaurants for 17 years, but 3 doing native digital delivery kitchen. One of my biggest mentors, Chris over at Cluster Truck, his answer would be, well, absolutely, you have to do first party delivery. And that's because he's a native delivery kitchen. Very, very similar to Oomi. I think part of the answer comes down to volume and the amount of orders that you're doing through delivery versus pickup. There's restaurants that have the delivery component. So for them, it might be more beneficial to use third-party, whether it's third-party platforms or even the third-party drivers. Because what is really first-party delivery? You can probably segment that multiple ways. For example, at Oomi, I would say we have a hybrid first-party type delivery because even though we like to have most of our sales be first-party, who's delivering the food? Is it your drivers? Is it a fleet? Or is it third-party drivers? If you can afford, or you can afford the volume. If you have enough volume and you have a good system with your drivers, you can have your own drivers. But you need to average 3 or 4 deliveries an hour per driver for it to be economical. And then you go into the scheduling and 1099s or the employees. So there's a lot of questions to be answered. Third party, whether it's a platform or third party delivery within first party, can help you solve some of those issues. But then what you're losing is the customer experience. For us, like we invest in acquiring customers that we want to deliver food to them. But if we're giving a subpar experience with a subpar delivery, right? Like we're in the business of delivering food. So our experience in our customer service comes in what happens to the food from when it's picked up to when it's delivered, and who's picking it up and who's delivering, and how that experience goes. As third-party delivery tends to have a lot of issues and inconsistencies with drivers and orders driven around town for 20, 30 minutes, and then they start heading towards you. So it's an hour delivery. The driver doesn't care. Sometimes they lose your food. So if that's a representation of your brand, then you're going to lose a customer because the experience is subpar. On the flip side, the expectations of the customer these days are much lower on delivery. You always hear that, hey, how was your food? Well, it was pretty good for delivery. Like, it was good for delivery. Like, the people's expectations are already lowered. So in reality, it's an easy game. If you can do it the right way, then you're going to be able to win those customers. But it's like this loop that we're in, that you're always going to be either competing with yourself on third party, with promotions, with slashing prices, who controls the customer, who owns the customer. So it's a dilemma that hasn't been solved yet, but I would say it just depends on the operator and who it is. If you're a native delivery restaurant, then I would recommend, and I would say like, hey, you have to own the delivery. If it's just an aggregator and it's just an extra revenue, then I would say, hey, forget all the headaches, don't invest in delivery, and just let the third party companies invest in delivery and focus on that with them. Let them take care of that, of those headaches. So I think it's just a case by case.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Really understanding who you are, who you want to be, right? Because every restaurant otherwise needs to determine whether they want to run a logistics business themselves, because there are those costs, those hidden costs like insurance and scheduling. And the reality is that the real upside isn't just the delivery, it's the data, right? That's the other angle of this, is that knowing who that customer is and being able to then remarket to them in a way that's far more efficient is clearly something that's advantageous, certainly for folks like yourself at Oomi. The other side of this is really just asking yourself, when you think about the customer experience, the customers don't always know whether it's first party or third party. They just want their order to be fast, they want it to be affordable, they want it to be reliable, right? And so ultimately look at the mix of the transactions that you have as an operator, because if, I don't know, let's say 70% of your digital orders are pickup, then maybe it's not as big a challenge for you. Maybe it's actually because your customers are living relatively close by. They prefer to pick it up because it's a nice transaction when they come inside the restaurant themselves. Whereas if 80% of your digital orders are all delivery, and actually it's spread out across a whole mixture of different areas, that's a different logistical challenge that you might need to think through. And if you can't fulfill those orders for 45 minutes, and therefore your competitors are able to do it faster, that's another angle to think about it too, right? So there are lots of factors, I think, that need to be considered on this one.
Okay, on to question number 2. So an ethical hacker exposes flaws in Burger King. What happened?
It made waves, this one, Marcus, both in the tech world, the restaurant world. Obviously involves Burger King's parent company, RBI, but I think this one's more about the bigger lesson for the industry. And I'll be curious to get your take in a moment, because when I read this on computing.co.uk and Bank Info Security, it talked about this independent security researcher that discovered vulnerabilities in a digital system that RBI was testing at the time. And according to that researcher, there were these kinds of flaws that, if exploited, could have allowed unauthorized access to parts of the system. And the researcher reported the issues responsibly, in the sense that they told RBI, look what I found, and then RBI moved quickly to address them. So in fact, by all accounts, the fixes were applied the same day as that researcher told them about it. So you might think, well, that's cool, right? That's, like you said, an ethical hacker as such. But maybe then the thing goes on to a level further, because the researcher then has a detailed write-up that he puts out there on the web, and therefore these flaws are basically made aware to everyone. And then those flaws were removed through a copyright takedown request. And that, I think, has really got more of the debate going on out there, because RBI's position is that the blog post that he put out there contained unauthorized use of their trademarks, and that therefore could be misleading. And then the security community has then since raised questions about whether copyright is the right tool in this context to use, and whether removing disclosure risks discourages researchers like this ethical hacker from coming forward in the future. Now, this isn't the first time a big brand has had to navigate that balance between protecting reputation and engaging openly with the outside experts. And that's why this story really matters, I think, to every restaurant operator, because increasingly our businesses aren't just physical, right? They're digital. There's loyalty programs, there's online ordering, there's mobile apps, there's AI-enabled drive-thrus. All of these things make the guest experience smoother, but they also expand that surface area for risk. Now, think about it. Restaurants today are custodians of sensitive customer data, emails, phone numbers, payment details, voice recordings. And that means restaurants are held to the same expectations of data security for places like banks or retailers. And then one misstep can really erode the trust that a guest has given you. And that comes back to that first party, third party piece, right? Actually, do I trust a DoorDash more, an established tech company, versus perhaps just a restaurant who might have some form of plugged together system? So there are some lessons here. Speed matters, but so does communication. RBI acted quickly, to their credit, to fix those vulnerabilities, and that's critical. But in today's environment, how you communicate about those fixes with researchers, with employees, even the public, can shape where the story becomes one of trust or one of concern. The second piece is collaboration with the security community and using that as an asset, not a liability. Ethical hackers and researchers can really help catch things before malicious actors do. and having a clear, responsible disclosure process and rewarding those who engage in good faith is increasingly seen as best practice across industries. And then the last piece of it, which I'm curious to get your take on as to whether you guys have one, is restaurants, do you have a mature incident response plan? Is it enough to rely on the IT vendor that you're working with, or just assume that these things are rare? Every operator in my mind should be asking, if a vulnerability was reported tomorrow, do you know who handles it, how quickly you can fix it, and how you communicate both internally and externally about that, right? So there's a real challenge, I think, as we get deeper and deeper into this world of digital transformation, and how CEOs and C-suites across restaurant groups, big and small, have to deal with it. So what's your take? Did this one stand out to you?
Yeah, it's almost like overwhelming, right? I go back to when we started Restaurant Tours, the only thing we had to worry about was really like maybe credit card data. But now like fraud and refunds and disputes, and it just keeps evolving. And now you start thinking about like high level, there's so much stuff that we're collecting, and where is it being stored? Who's protecting it? So if I need support with IT or anything related to cybersecurity, I'm going to go hire somebody or an outside company to do it. And I think as an independent local restaurant, that's how I feel about it. If I had a national chain or an international chain, I would probably have my own department and make sure that we have complete control and complete supervision of the entire infrastructure. But I think at this level is just trying to take the steps that are required to being one in compliance, because a lot of it comes down to compliance. So for us, like we want to go out and hire somebody outside the company to handle that for us so that we can have the peace of mind.
DoorDash has been in the news, and they've been talking about this new commerce platform that they've been adding to. What are the key highlights for you?
Well, it seems like they're working really hard on their CRM and kind of the data component of it. I'm still researching a little bit more and trying to realize if you're really going to be able to market to your first party customers and your third party customers, because that right there is an unlock. But I'm trying to figure out what the logic is there for DoorDash, for them to let you market to what they've been guarding for so long, like it's some sort of like there's no way restaurants we're going to get access to third-party data. And now all of a sudden it seems like maybe they realize like there's a tug and pull here where, hey, we will process your sales, we will be your platform, you're going to pay us, but hey, we're going to give you your customer data. So I'm still like, I want to do a little more research on it, because that does seem like a little bit of an unlock. And it also seems like they're going to pull you away from the Uber Eats customer, right? So it works both ways. One, they're charging you for a platform. They're going to be processing your sales, so they're probably going to be making some money on that. They're going to have your data, but they're giving you a free website. They're giving you some CRM capabilities, which as a small restaurant, brick and mortar, like probably seems like pretty advantageous. And they're pulling you away from Uber, because now you're going to want to focus more on your DoorDash customer, because every time you have a new customer, you actually own the customer.
It's fascinating hearing you talk through your logic of how you evaluate it, right? Because they've got these 3 programs about the starter, the boost, the pro packages. And of course, their big line is commission-free ordering. It's like, what? Commission-free ordering through branded websites. And that, of course, has those integrated loyalty tools. It's like, oh, what? You mean I don't have to have my own loyalty program? And then enhanced marketing promotional capabilities? What? You mean you help take care of that? So in that sense, they're packaging this up in such a way like it's more like a SaaS product with a subscription fee in exchange for these expanded services. Mm-hmm. And I can see why they're doing it, because one of the biggest challenges in the industry is also the fact that a lot of organizations over the last 5 years especially have added on feature to feature, this SaaS platform, this kind of SaaS product, and you've got this kind of real convoluted tech stack. So if you're starting afresh and you're wanting just to not have to deal with any of the technology at all, and you're perhaps in a real dominant DoorDash market where there's far more DoorDash presence, there's far more Dasher drivers than there are Uber drivers, then maybe this pathway would be the right one to go down because it just removes all those other headaches. And it's really a question as to whether the subscription cost can offset the commission-free orders, but also is the operator going to be able to take advantage of the full tool set they offer? Does it give them what they want to the level of degree that they really need to be able to grow their business? And those are the questions, I think, that are going to help people determine whether they want to embrace this. Yeah. The other part is that DoorDash isn't talking about just restaurants anymore, right? They're going after all these other verticals. And so this kind of local commerce mission, this idea of attacking convenience partners and pet stores and all these other things, show that they're having to have something like this in place because perhaps the model they built for restaurants isn't going to be applicable for these other sub-verticals as well.
All right, so here we go, FSTEC. So they revealed their tech guide. What stands out to you? Like, I feel like you probably know all the founders, like ins and outs. Where are we with tech stack?
What I thought I'd do is actually bring up this guide that the FSTEC team have pulled together. It's a 50-page guide that covers something I've been calling out for years. First of all, they give this breakdown of all these different providers across all these different parts of the tech stack, and they start with point of sale. I'm not going to go through all, 50 pages or so, but I thought I'd pick out like 5 specific pages and just show you some little snippets of it. Because what they've done alongside Nation's Restaurant News and Restaurant Business is they've surveyed a whole bunch of operators. And some of the results are interesting, and you'll see how you react to them. But on customer experience, which is the second section after POS, it said that 59% of the operators collect and measure online reviews and ratings, as well as guest feedback from own voice of the customer platforms. So what surprised me more than anything is that it's only 59% of operators, at least surveyed on this, that are measuring what customers are talking about online. There's this other graphic here that says 3 in 10 surveyed operators called improving their guest experience the most impactful ROI of upgrading their back of house technology. And that's including nearly half of the operators from the 500 plus unit chains. So for me, I was surprised given how much both on-premise and off-premise experiences today will result in some form of either plaudit or potential criticism in an online forum, how actually only 6 out of 10 are actually measuring it. So that one really stood out to me.
So for us as a digital restaurant, like this tool is the most important part of our entire tech stack. Like we live on this, like this is it for us. And we are literally the highest rated restaurant in the entire DFW Metroplex. We are the only 4.9 star Google rated restaurant in the city. I cannot find any other restaurant close to that. And we are a digital restaurant with no wait staff and no front of house staff, no cashiers. And the only way we accomplished that was through the customer experience part. We use Ovation, and I cannot go a day without it. It is essential. So when you say 6 out of 10, like it shocks me that people are not using this tool. And there's so much to it. Like, what's the first thing you do when you want to look up a restaurant? You go and look at the reviews. What's the first restaurant that comes up? It's the highest rated restaurant.
I knew this would get your attention. I thought he's going to have something to say about this. I was right. Look at this one. So this then goes into the back of house tech world, and across the board here, about a third or so of operators either plan to invest in back of house ops, labor management, or back of house capabilities. What was interesting was Scott Shear, CIO of Jersey Mike, saying here, restaurant tech that harnesses AI video and AI data mining to streamline operations and personalize the guest experience isn't just a trend, it's a revolution in hospitality. This is one of the things I'm seeing a lot in Visible right now, a lot of the ways in which computer vision is really starting to identify not just deviations in process, but also ways to optimize the way in which we're running our restaurants. And perhaps there are ways to do things better that just a set of eyes, I don't know, whether it be a GM or whether it be a territory manager, can't do themselves, because there are just so many different data points across every single day part, whereas computer vision can capture those and almost demarcate the challenges from the wins and being able to actually address those opportunities. But only a third or so looking to invest in back of house. So this one then touches on loyalty. 3 out of 10 aren't having a loyalty program, and 38%, only 38% said they're interested in exploring AI-driven personalization through their programs. So again, a level of hesitation, I think, in some of these answers here. Another one that really stood out, I was super surprised by this. 51%, slightly more than half of all those operators offer delivery via third party, which means 1 in 2 of those surveyed aren't on DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, none of them, which blows my mind in many ways. Maybe that kind of tells you that maybe there's a higher proportion of independence on this, because all the big chains now have some form of representation on third party.
Yeah, that's a big number, right? I would think it would be around like 65, 70%.
Yeah, I would thought so. And then last one, going back to our second question here, I'll let Lauren take the stage here, who, Lauren, if you don't know, is over at the IFBTA. And it builds on this stat here. 26% of operators plan to invest in data management and security this year. Have a listen to what Lauren says.
As we're seeing in the industry, there's been such an uptick in cyber crime and security breaches. And while I would like to think that most operators realize that that's something that they have to pay attention to, I just don't think there's been as serious a focus on that as there should be. And so there are some really incredible technology vendors out there that are making sure that they can work with operators to safeguard their businesses and mitigate risks. And I think it's those brands that really should be watched.
So yeah, very wise words there from Lauren, but really interesting when we get surveys like this, just to look at them, see what kind of trends are appearing and things. But it also puts some questions out there for the operators that listen into the show to say, where are we on this and where should we be? Let's finish up with something fun and innovative. Starbucks have been in the news, Markus. They've unveiled a new way to do inventory control. I'm going to let you tell people what it is and how it works, and then give me your take on it.
Starbucks is working on imagery, photography, and video to take inventory. You grab the iPad and you go to a shelf and you just do a recording or take pictures, and you're just doing a scan of your shelves. There's some sort of an augmented component to it where it knows you have a 5-gallon bucket of cream. And if the half-gallon bucket of cream is half empty, based on the picture, it already has a conversion on the back end. So it knows, you have 2.5 gallons of cream left in your inventory. And then from there, it sends a signal to the system, hey, in the next 2 days, we're projecting this many sales. So you're going to run out of cream. So you better order some cream, because if not, you're going to have unhappy customers. So to me, that whole synergy is pretty amazing. And I think that's where some of these big players, that's a huge advantage for them over smaller restaurants like us. We're still having to go out and get the clipboard out and weigh stuff, do bean counting, if we want to put it that way. And it takes our manager probably 3 or 4 hours to take an inventory every week. And we only do it once a week because it's time consuming. And who says it's not going to be accurate, right? It's hard. You're bean counting, and sometimes managers are tired, they're cold because they're in the walk-in cooler, they're in the walk-in freezer. It's a beating still to take an inventory. So the fact that this is being developed, it's pretty amazing. And one of my mentors one time told me, hey, we're in the business of making money with cents. So when it comes down to cents and you have complete accuracy over your inventory, that's where your money is. That's 30% of your cost. So it's really interesting to see. And I just wish that it's going to trickle down to where, hey, we're providing this technology for smaller restaurants and independent local restaurants, 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. I think there's technologies out there that are providing this, but for larger units. So it will get there. It's going to happen. But yeah, it's pretty nice to see. And to me, when I experienced that, it was pretty fascinating.
I saw the company behind this, Nomad Go, at a show, I think it's a year or so back, and it was interesting to see it work, and the people were just showing how it works in a retail context. And I know there are big grocer chains that actually have robots going up and down the aisles doing exactly the same thing. Yeah. But here's the thing that I thought I'd also bring up. Have a look at this. This was on the Starbucks Reddit thread, and there are some really interesting comments, I'm guessing, from baristas who are basically saying, look, this used to be so much simpler. This is now adding a lot of time and complexity to the system. I was going through these here and it's like, oh my goodness, it just shows you that there's a lot of frustration about the tech, even though it's quite innovative. So you look at some of these comments here, it's either not, so we kept seeing matter everywhere and the strawberry puree on the acai shelf. I always close on Wednesday, so I do all the accounts. I'm usually fast at it, but the AI thing wasn't horrible. But Starbucks, I think you've got to applaud them, because what they're doing is they're trying to say, look, if we do this thing right, we're going to be able to not just do inventory control better, but we're going to be able to do it more often. If we can do it more often, we can get to better accuracy, we can get to better inventory control, better cash control.
Yeah.
So everything with AI, doesn't matter whether it be this thing with Nomad Go, whether it be voice AI through the drive-through, it requires a period of time of training. And so if anyone ever thinks about deploying this into their business, you've got to approach it with a level of patience, because these models have to learn based on errors. Markus, we've been talking a while, and for those folks that are still with us, I would love them to hear a little bit more about what's Oomi about, and tell me, where are you guys at? How many locations now? And we've been using this term digitally native. What is digitally native?
Yeah, I would say that we're a good example of that. Like every transaction that we have in the restaurant is digital. We live in the digital world. Like our brands don't have a brick and mortar store. We are on our platform. We have a new mobile app, a native app that we just launched about 3 months ago. We focus on delivering takeout, but I think it all comes down to like you can only place an order of Oomi through your phone or your computer. So that makes us digitally native. And yeah, we have 9 different brands under one kitchen. We own all the brands. We are able to cross-utilize ingredients, cross-utilize staff. It's one central kitchen. We don't rent out kitchen stalls or anything like that. We run our 9 brands with 3 cooks, and that's one of our things that we're working on, is becoming highly efficient and being able to produce 100 menu items that we have on our platform. And we do have our storefronts on third party. It's part of our revenue streams, but it's like a lot of these things that we discussed today are part of our day-to-day conversations, right? Like, how much should we focus on first party? How much should we focus on third party? Like, what are the pain points with the drivers? Like, it's all very relative. I can relate to it at a very high level. So yeah, we're in Dallas, and we've been open for 3 years, and we've been through a lot of battles. It's not an easy business, but we are one of the last few like standing digital kitchens or digital food halls, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so we feel like we keep refining the model, and every day we learn and we adjust. And yeah, so that's what Oomi is. And
I think you should say you're one of the first few, not one of the last few. I think you're setting the way in which it's going to run in the future. Wonder gets all the noise these days, right? They get all the attention, but obviously they have a similar approach with a scratch kitchen, the vertically integrated approach. Oh, it's fast, it's fresh, it's delicious. Every time I'm in Dallas, I'm always ordering from you guys, and so I could definitely validate that it's definitely a great experience. And I'm thrilled to have you as a friend and someone that I can talk to as someone that's actually gone and walked the talk, right? I talk about it all the time. You're actually doing it, which is amazing. If people want to reach out to you, Markus, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty active on our Instagram account. I'm very involved with our social, so just that's an easy reach. You just send a DM through Instagram, or even just the traditional LinkedIn, which I'm more involved with our social and worried about my business than the LinkedIn stuff. So I'm more likely to check the Instagram than a LinkedIn message. I've been watching the podcast since back in the Meredith days. So it's an honor to be on it.
Awesome, man. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Have a good week.
Thank you.
The Digital Restaurant Podcast is available for you to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Watch us, rate us, and subscribe to The Digital Restaurant on YouTube, and follow along on all our social media digital restaurant channels. Thanks for listening.